First of all, I want to apologize for my English here, my grammar, my spelling. I rushed. Second thing, I'm not going to get into the details of how they attack us in Ecuador, how they harass us, how they hack our mails, how the president insults some of us in a weekly show that the president has. I'm not going to get in all those details because I think that after 10 years of living this, we have to share some thoughts about how is it working under a totalitarian and an autocratic regime. The theme of this panel was polarization. I think polarization is just a product of an autocratic regime. And one of the thoughts that I have is that the autocrats, the first thing they do is to give words a different meaning. Okay? When they change the meaning of the words, society fails to share certain values that were once common to all. So once an autocrat describes democracy in a certain way and society has a different way, then comes polarization. And this happens thanks to propaganda the autocrats have and by the support that they have from certain shares of society. So things get an alternative meaning, okay? Let's say democracy. Democracy for Rafael Correa, for example, it's the will of the majority. But it will never be a system to respect minorities. And I think that's quite important because well, that explains why the name of our site is Cuatro Pelagatos. Correa, when he refers to the minorities or the people who criticize him, he says it's Cuatro Pelagatos. That means there are just a few of poor guys who doesn't mind, who are not relevant. That's why we choose the name Cuatro Pelagatos, because we think a democracy is a system to protect minorities, and we wanted to represent minorities. Okay, another example, freedom of expression. For them, freedom of expression, it's the right to talk, and when we say freedom of expression, for them, it's freedom of enterprise. We are the enterprise, we are the companies. Civil society only have rights if it's organized by the state, by the government, and the official party. When it's not, it's subversion. Corruption, it's a bona fide error. When a minister was questioned by a journalist about a huge scandal, he said that was a mistake, a bona fide mistake. So I just wanted to show you how they change the meaning of things and why. Why I think this is important, because sometimes, let's say, investigative journalism, that I think it's the most important and the most valuable kind of journalism possible, but there's a moment when corruption doesn't mean nothing for the people, because it's just an issue that it gets normalized. Accountability is what the president says to the people without anyone questioning. Our president has a show, a weekly show, 3 hours, where he says whatever he wants, and that's how he says that he's transparent. Like minorities, it's another word, another term that has a different meaning for them. Minorities are groups that should have no rights because they are just a few. Nosotros somos más. That's an expression. We are the majority and we can do whatever we want. And here I wanted to share you this ideas that I have. One of the main purposes of autocrats is to make normal what it's abnormal. Okay. Once they have done that, they have the control of everything. For example, 10 years ago, the lack of separation of powers was abnormal and scandalous in Ecuador. Now it's perfectly normal. It used to be abnormal and scandalous for a president to insult and mock those who do not agree with him. Now it's perfectly normal. 10 years ago, it was not normal for a president to give orders to the electoral authority during the election. This happened like 1 week ago. Now it is perfectly normal. It was not normal for the ruling party to use the public media as propaganda outlets. Now it's normal. It was not normal for newspapers to be punished for not publishing news the government believes are relevant. Now it's normal. Yesterday, 6 papers in Ecuador were punished and fined because they didn't publish a special story that was published in an Argentinian newspaper called Página 12. And they were fined because the government thought that that story was relevant because it was an attack to the opposition candidate. And so these papers should have paid attention on that publication in Argentina and publish it. They did not. They were punished. Yeah, this is because in Ecuador we have a communication law that created a regulatory body that belongs to the executive power, to the president, and this regulatory body can define everything. It's probably the toughest communication law in the world, in the Ecuadorian one. And so this Supercom, that's the name of this regulatory body, it decided everything. So they decided that these papers were committing auto-censorship because they didn't want to publish something that was published in Argentina, and that's why they are fined. So they decide everything. There's a really huge fear situation in Ecuador. When I was fired, nobody wanted to hire me because all the media outlets didn't want to hire me because I was not good for the government. Okay, so this brings us to what it's called a Kasparov metaphor. Doing journalism under authoritarian regime is like playing chess against somebody who keeps knocking the figures off the board. It's like playing chess with somebody that is not playing chess. That's the feeling we have. Okay, you think you're playing with somebody and the other guy just is playing another thing. Well, just a few things that I think it's also our guilt. Journalism has helped autocrats normalize the abnormal. How? They accepted the new journalistic ethos imposed by the autocrats. Autocrats want journalists to only describe the facts, but not to say what the fact means. Autocrats do not want journalists with opinions. They only want them as factual recorders. The lesson we have learned that facts and truth are not always the same. Journalists must be able not only to describe the facts, but also the truth. For example, Rafael Correa ordered to imprison a young man. This happened like a month ago. Rafael Correa ordered to imprison a young man because he made a bad sign to him. That is the fact. But telling the audience that he does that because he is not a Democrat is also to tell the truth. Sometimes these kind of things autocrats do, they are assumed as normal also. And we shouldn't accept that as normal. Lessons: battle begins the very first day. Journalists have to be an obstacle in the normalization of the abnormal. We have to be aware that journalism is under threat because journalism is a fundamental part of the public sphere. And autocrats are willing to take over the public sphere. Autocrats are very smart. They will find a lot of ways of imposing censorship. Their menu is huge. Libel laws, regulatory bodies, fear, propaganda, harassment, copyright laws, communication laws, apparently designed to protect people. If they think you are a threat, they will find a way to make your boss fire you. My case. I'm going to skip this because And I wanted to share this really tiny video. Okay. It's 1 minute. Because you know why I wanted to share this video? Because we think that we have to retake the meaning of the words. In Ecuador, there's only one word master, that is Rafael Correa. He owns the right to speak. He is the only one who really have this right to say whatever he wants. So we created a Mashi machine. Mashi is the nickname for Correa. And we created this machine. It's just a digital tool. We smashed in all the Correa's speeches, and so people can play and say whatever they want through Correa.
Una sola voz que lo dice todo y es la mía. Soy el Mashi Correa, presidente de Ecuador.
The Ecuadorian government controls all the national media and criminalizes freedom of speech. In words of the New York Times, this represents an assault on democracy. 3 journalists who were censored by Mashi Correa decided to open a new digital journal that defies the media clamp the government imposed. To promote this journal, they gave a voice to Ecuador by using the only authorized voice, Mashi Machine, a web platform where people express themselves making videos using thousands of the words Mashi has said in his public speeches.
La libertad de expresión no se censura. Lunes, impuesto. Martes, impuesto. Miércoles, también impuesto. Jueves y viernes, impuesto.
So the Mashi machine spoke, and thousands of voices were heard. Everybody spoke, except for the government.
Nadie me pierde la calma, nadie grita o lo manda detenido.
Rafael Correa, pones crear video y a partir de distintos discursos de Rafael Correa tomando palabras del presidente de Ecuador se generan videos.
3 hacking attempts could not silence Mashi Machine, turning their website into one of the most visited sites in Ecuador, proving that there is not only one voice in Ecuador, but millions of them.
¡Viva la libertad de expresión! Y los 4 pelagatos